Fallout 4 has a lot of work in progress mods. Last week I showed you some of those work in progress mods that never got finished or released for that matter, laying dormant in a seemingly eternal abyss on someone's hard drive or cloud. Well, you guys actually really seem to like that video, so today I'm going to be showing you 8 more unfinished and never released mods, all of these looking extremely promising though. If you're a mod author watching this, maybe you could email or message one of these guys and ask to pick up those mods. Otherwise, if you're just a fan, maybe send the mod author a message, but don't be too annoying. A lot of these people probably stopped working on these either because they lost interest, because you know, mod authors do this in their free time for free, or maybe there was just other complications and they realized that it wouldn't actually be as practical to put that in the game as they originally thought. Either way, here are 8 amazing looking mods that never got released. Starting things off, we do have Fallout 4 Citizen Kane. This is attempting to be another kind of overhaul or DLC sized expansion mod for Fallout 4. It was going to take you to a location south of the Commonwealth and actually experience a whole new campaign with new NPCs, new enemies, and new equipment. As you can see in the background, a lot of this was meant to be a bit more futuristic than Fallout 4. Obviously it takes place in the same time period, but it seemed like that region or those regions that you would be traveling to would actually have more advanced technology. We never really found out a ton about the story, just that you'd be taken to a new and unique location and it would be the size of Far Harbor or about that size. Unfortunately, we only ever got one initial update. The mod author in that original update did mention though that he was working on this for 9 months before announcing it. So if that's true, it's very unfortunate because that seems to mean a lot of work was kind of just left to waste because we never got a second update. We only ever had that initial one. Either way, maybe he'll renew the project. Maybe he still has all of this work done. He did mention that he was looking for people to help him out. It doesn't seem like too many people maybe noticed it, but it definitely seems like something that would be a bit interesting. Fallout 4, although being futuristic, isn't always super high tech, while this mod definitely seems like it would have explored that avenue a bit more. So we do have Robotic Arm Prothesis. This is by X-Gamer, who is the mod author behind the B-35C. He has since actually begun working on the Capital Wasteland project, but at one point in between those two, he was actually working on this mod known as Robotic Arm Prothesis. In his brief description, more or less what he described is somewhere where you could actually edit certain armors in the game. These would be damaged armors. And then within that, actually attach robotic arms onto that, so your character would thus then have robotic arms. This is of course meant to be like, let's say you're role-playing and your character gets hurt and loses an arm, but then you could replace it with this high-tech and advanced one. He mentioned how he'd actually want to take on other body parts as well, and I think that's a really interesting idea. With the presence of the Institute in Fallout 4, being able to do this on humans seems pretty plausible, like it's definitely something that could be and should be in the game. And obviously having certain benefits associated with getting some of your limbs augmented with robotic limbs seems like it could be pretty cool and of course fit pretty well with the overall theme of Fallout 4. Unfortunately, this is another one that we never actually got any more updates to. X-Gamer is still pretty active in the community, but it seems like for this mod he has simply moved on. Then we do have the SR-25. I personally was extremely excited for this one. I always thought the SR-25 was a really cool and interesting weapon. Fallout 4 was really lacking good sniper rifles, and of course, as I've mentioned in many of my videos, I love doing like a sniper style playthrough, actually playing or a little bit more far back, but of course taking down enemies from quite far away. With the introduction to the combat overhauls as well as see-through combat scopes, I think it's the most fun doing this in Fallout 4 compared to any other video game out there. In vanilla Fallout 4, the only true sniper rifle is really like a bolt action, unless you go into some of the laser weaponry, and I thought the SR-25 would have been a great addition here. Obviously we have some things like the MK14 EBR, but there's always nice to have variety and options. Plus again, I was just kind of a personal fanboy of this gun. Well, unfortunately, despite getting 2 updates on this, we never got a third or a release. It seemed like the mod author actually was paying a lot of attention to some of the different sights and scopes that would be available, which is definitely something nice to see. That's often a part that I feel like people ignore or overlook, but obviously if it's a DMR, you're probably going to be spending a lot of time looking through one. Either way, one that I'm personally pretty sad to see never get released, but who knows, maybe it'll just pop up one day. Alright, so now we have a double header. This is going to be the 10mm SMG by Cannibal Arvdark. I always think I pronounce his name wrong, but either way, he's actually been working on this for quite a while. We got periodic updates over the past, I don't know, it was like a year and a half. And well, to be frank, it looked really freaking good. The 10mm SMG is of course an iconic Fallout weapon. It's something that should have been in the base game because you should have been able to modify the 10mm pistol into this, but unfortunately you cannot. And it seems like he was going to be bringing it to the table with some interesting attachments to it. He actually was working on like a master key and I think even a grenade launcher for this at one point. And he actually got into the texturing process, which is a pretty good sign that something will get released. Well, unfortunately, this still lays dormant. I believe he still says it is coming out at some point. He's just working on some other things right now, and he still is pretty active in the modding community, so hopefully if this does come out eventually, it will be amazing and make everyone super happy. I know I personally am still waiting for the day I see this on the new mods on Nexus, so hopefully that will come, well, sometime. So the one for me that actually burns a little bit more from the same mod author is actually the Laser RCW. This was a super iconic and notable weapon from Fallout New Vegas. I actually would say it's my most iconic weapon from that game. I remember using this the most, far more than anything else, and I just loved the work in progress shots he was posting. I remember covering this in upcoming mods and getting continuously more excited as we got more news about it. Unfortunately, this is another one that, although the updates in the work he did looks amazing, we haven't really heard too much about in a very long time. He was taking full advantage of Fallout 4's customization system, and just all around, again, I thought it was a super iconic and just really unique gun. It was like a good combination of real world, but making it Fallout enough with those laser aspects, and it was just a ton of fun to use in my eyes. If I truly had to pick one, I would definitely want the Laser RCW more so than the 10mm SMG, but you know, that's just me, and honestly, I'd be pretty happy to get either of them at this point. So we got one I know a lot of you guys are pretty upset that I didn't include in the first video, and that's going to be the HK416. This was a very anticipated new mod for Fallout 4, and we got a lot of updates for it. I'm only showing you one video in the background because it's actually only one of the few things that remains from, well, the work in progress of this mod. Basically, the mod author for this one was working on it and then actually had some personal troubles. I covered this in a video a very long time ago, probably around a year ago now, and this mod already was kind of dead, or we hadn't had any updates for quite a while when I made that video. Well, unfortunately, around the time I made that original video, he also did take down a lot of the work in progress screenshots that we did have of this. So the one thing I'm showing you, I will have linked down below. It's on his YouTube channel. You could like it, subscribe to him maybe. But either way, otherwise, what this mod was all about was actually a pretty unique and high quality weapon mod. It felt like it was very forward thinking for its time. It actually had a unique thing where you had to find the weapon modifications for this in cases around the map. And just all around, it looked much better and like it had way more customization than any other weapon mod at that time. Since then, we've gotten things like the AK-5C and the Watts laser rifle, which actually do bring similar levels of customization to those mods. But again, at the time when this was being a work in progress, we didn't have anything that was even close to the same quality level. But I know for myself and a lot of other people, it's really a shame, this one especially, that it never got released, because we actually saw a lot of in-game footage of it working and a lot of the features being implemented. This one might not be dead permanently. Obviously, the mod author probably wants this to get released, but sometimes real life gets in the way, and I think with this case, that's what happened. So we have another one that was meant to be a DLC sized or overhaul mod for Fallout 4, this time actually adding in Wyoming. As you can see, this mod was going to add in the wastes of Wyoming while having a fairly big focus on the Great Khanate, aka adding in a new faction very similar to the Great Khans. It looked really promising. They had, you know, some pretty big open world space that they wanted to fill out. They actually were requesting some writers to get some of the story and like kind of lore behind this going. I just don't think they had a team big enough for how ambitious this project was, and it just never generated enough traction. I imagine they still have some of the files for this, so I'm going to leave a link to this one down below also. Maybe they'll renew the project if they get a bunch of support. Either way, it sounded really interesting to me. Wyoming is a very, well, I guess weird place. I don't actually know anything about Wyoming other than I imagine it's fairly country and desolate with low population values. For that reason, it could have been interesting to have that in Fallout 4 because it would have probably introduced that location to a lot of people. So then last but not least, we have another one that might burn a few people because there's actually some very recent comments, one from like 2 days ago, asking where this mod is or if it's still being worked on, and that's going to be the ELYSIUM AK. This was a work in progress by FX0X01 and his whole crew, I'm sure. And more or less what this was, or this one image we did get, was a recreation of the AK from the movie Elysium, which has been released, but it was also in the trailers and all that, in Fallout 4. It was kind of a futuristic looking AK, something that seemed like it would fit really well in Fallout 4 because of Fallout 4 being something in the future, but only having some minor differences from today. And all around, I just know a lot of people got excited for this one. Elysium was a cool movie. I never personally saw it, but I heard good things, and the trailers look cool. And whenever there's recreations of movie props in Fallout 4, people get very excited. Obviously, these guys behind this actually have produced a ton of other quality content, so they're definitely still active in Fallout 4 modding. They just decided for whatever reason to not go forward with this one. Maybe it was a copyright concern or something like that. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. For our psychology fun fact of the day, it's something just kind of more interesting to think about. As you guys know, they actually do testing on different drugs and drug use in, well, people. I took a class on drugs and behavior, and one thing my professor did while he was at my school is actually go downtown by all the bars and it had a little tent where they do experiments on drunk people because, you know, you can naturally find drunk people around a bunch of bars. So in my class, a lot of people were like, didn't they like go crazy, or weren't they really reckless? Because, you know, obviously depending on how drunk they were, they had different impairments and things like that. Well, my teacher kind of introduced the idea of your environment. Since they were in a tent or a lab setting, no one was super reckless or did anything crazy or was loud because the setting didn't really call for that. Your setting or your environment when using drugs and really a lot of things in life actually matters a lot. So much so that actually some people have overdosed on certain drugs because they took it in a different place, but the same dosage. This is a very rare phenomenon, but your body will actually mentally prep itself, let's say, if you go into the same room to do a certain drug every single time. But then if you go into a different location to do it another time, but the same dosage, your body doesn't do that mental prep, and thus there was people that had overdosed in that regard. Either way, something very interesting, the role environment plays on you psychologically, and yeah, it's pretty much going to wrap it up. As always, I thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.